You're seeing on display a metaphor of like what this party is, and just basically just ignorant white men. And you're just seeing it on display.
White men.
All white men. White male Republican.
White men.
Wow. A whole passel of dumb people have been on TV recently using the Brett Kavanaugh story to inflame racial tension in this country. It's confusing, of course, because this case has literally nothing to do with race at all. Everybody in it, accuser and accused, and the only supposed eyewitness we know of are the same color. No one is accused of making racial threats, using racial epithets, or even mentioning race. And yet, time and again, on the left, you hear race highlighted in outrage about this case. What could that possibly be about? Chris Hahn is an attorney, a radio host, and most importantly, a former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, and he joins us tonight. So, Chris, I'm confused. Why, if there was a fire at my house and you showed up and the first thing you started doing was denouncing some race or other, that'd be kind of a weird response. You'd be like a racist or a crazy person. What was race have to do with it? What is this about? Why am I seeing this all week?
I think they're comparing the 1991 Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee with the 2018 Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee and how very similar they look. Whereas the Democrats, which were all white in 1991, are not anymore on the Senate Judiciary Committee. So there's a comparison to be made there. And there are no women on the committee. That's more important. And I think this is an issue that is very sensitive to most women across this country.
Well,
and I think that the Democrats have made that point, and I think a lot of pundits have made that point. I know I've made that point to you as well.
But I'm confused, though, because this is a legal case, and so the race or sex of anybody in it, and certainly anyone judging it, should be by definition irrelevant. Legal cases are determined not on the basis of race. That's a Nazi thing, which we're against, I think. But they're determined on the basis of the facts, the evidence. So, again, why would race be relevant? This would not be allowed in a court of law. Why is it allowed in the Judiciary Committee?
I agree that this is not a case about race, and we should be taking the time to do what's relevant in this case. It's not anything that has any strict timing on it, yet that seems the Republicans' only concern, that we get this done by Wednesday. This woman is asked to come on Thursday, and that's one day later. I don't know why they can't wait till Thursday.
Well, because it delays the vote. Hold on. Hold on. Wait, when you say I don't know, hold on. You know exactly why, which is because it delays the vote for a week. That's the whole point of saying you can't come till Thursday. And her lawyers because her lawyers who made a career of excusing sexual assaults in the case of Bill Clinton, literally, are political operatives who are trying to affect a political result. But let's just get back to the core question, which is, I don't understand how you can feel good about a party that divides people by race in the middle of a story that has nothing to do with it. Do you worry that constantly picking at that wound is going to hurt the country? How is that good for America when you're pointing out the race of people when it's irrelevant?
I don't think that the Democratic Party is pointing out the race of people. I know that there are some pundits on TV that have continued to point it out. But arguing about the timing in 1 week, it's kind of like arguing about the clock in a baseball game. The Republicans kept the seat open for 444 days. 1 more week's not going to hurt anybody. Let's get to the facts here. Let's call some witnesses. Let's not talk about who's white or not.
I've read the talking points, and you're doing a fine job of reading them. Let me just ask you. Well, hold on. Since I'm asking the questions, let me just ask you a final one, which is, why has there been this hesitance for her to testify? If the Senate Republicans, if Grassley is offered to send someone out to talk to her in her home, I thought the whole point was giving voice to victims of sexual assault. And now morons like Joe Biden are saying that that's an assault on her to ask her to explain what happened. How does that work exactly?
Well, I think we're going to find out exactly why next week, and whether we find out in a Senate committee or we find out on 60 Minutes, she will be heard before this vote happens, and it will not be good for this nomination. It is very much at risk whether she comes to the Senate
60 minutes,
or not.
Why not just
because there are more forums. There are more forums, and the American people want to hear from her, and they will hear from her. And the Senate Republicans should let her come on Thursday, and they should stop playing games. Well, look,
the shamelessness, at a certain point, it's like, there's never going to be another confirmation hearing again for Supreme Court Justice,
Well,
because this is such bald. No, this is, you guys just blew up the system. It's over. Sad, too,
look,
because
we were
it
both
worked
young
for like
in 1991, but we remember it, and we said the same thing then, right?
Yeah.
We said the same thing after Clarence Thomas.
No, we didn't.
Things change.
All right. Chris,
sure
thank you very much. Well, the left has cast the Kavanaugh case as a war of men against women. That's the talking point. Fascinating, though, a new poll by YouGov finds, buckle your seatbelt now, that women are actually less likely than men to see Christine Ford's allegations as credible, 25 to 28%. Not a huge margin, but a real one. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, a Star Tribune poll finds that only 5% of Democrats believe accusations against DNC Vice Chair Keith Ellison, despite much greater and far more detailed evidence against him. Beverly Hallberg is president of District Media Group, and she joins us tonight. Beverly, I'm confused. So I've heard from everyone, including our last guest, that this is a subject that inflames women. If that's true, then why do fewer women than men believe Christine Ford?
Because I think they objectively look at this and realize that there is no proof to the claims to this point. But even beyond that, I think women realize they have men in their lives that they care about, whether husbands or sons or brothers. I don't think any of us would want these type of accusations, which could be false accusations, placed against any of them without due process.
Could it also be that women in general trust other women much less than men trust women? Or are we not allowed to say that because it's too obvious?
Well, if you live in Washington, D.C., you would think that you would believe what Democrats say, which is that only women tell the truth and only men lie. You even had senators come out and say, I believe her, yet we don't even know what the truth is. So there's something going on with the Democrat Party. Of course, I think this has a lot to do with political posturing and trying to rid Kavanaugh of the Supreme Court seat that he's for. I think it actually has a lot to do with abortion. But what they want to do is try to pit women against men. And what this does, it's actually extremely damaging to the Me Too movement. When you politicize this, when it's not about really finding the truth, you do a grave disservice to women who do need to be heard, who have been attacked in the past. And so I think women are standing up because they're concerned about that.
Just the lying is so nauseating. I mean, I'm surrounded by women. I have 4 in my house. I believe almost everything women tell me. I just instinctively, as a man, and most men I know are kind of the same way. The people who are most deeply suspicious of women who I know are other women. And I don't know. Do you know anybody who hasn't had that experience, who doesn't know what I'm talking about? But we all have to pretend it's not true because why? Again?
I'll even say the women who I've talked to, friends of mine personally, we talk about this and we look at the accusations that are made and we say a lot of this doesn't add up. She can't remember when, she can't remember where. Why is that? If this happened, and I want to hear what she has to say. This is a traumatic event. You would remember those details.
It's so funny.
And so women, I think, intuitively know that.
Look, I mean, the reason in me is starting to believe that this is really a setup and bad. But my first instinct was, and almost always is with women, she seems sincere to me, you know?
And here's the other part.
Right.
Women talk to their friends.
Right. Well,
where are the other friends coming out?
Fair point.
That's something that women do. So there's an aspect to this where you say, okay, really want to know what's going on. But I think women listen to this and say it's not adding up.
I've noticed that. The women I've spoken to. Beverly, thank you very much.
you.
Good to see you tonight.